This afternoon. So starting with Gerard Quinn, formerly of this parish, but now Gerard he was the founding director of the Centre for Disability Law and Policy, so we're very pleased to welcome him back here. He now holds the Wallenberg Chair at the Wallenberg Institute for Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law in the University of Lund and a research chair at the University of Leeds. His specialisation is in international and comparative disability law and policy. He led the delegation of Rehabilitation International during the UN working group that elaborated and debated for the new UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. He's worked in the European Commission. He's held a number of posts, such as the Director of Research of the Irish Government's Law Reform Commission, and he was the Vice President of the European Commission of Social Rights. He also sits on and has sat on many advisory boards, and I'm not actually going to list them all here because there's lots of them. Most recently, in January 2012, the President of Ireland, President Michael D. Higgins, appointed Professor Quinn to the Republic of Ireland's Council of State. So they advise the President on legal matters. The next speaker we're going to introduce is Ignacio Campo Cervera, my Spanish is poor. I got Ignacio right though, so we'll go with that for a start. So Ignacio is a senior lecturer with tenure at the International Law, Ecclesiastical Law and Philosophical Law Department of the University of Carlos III of Madrid, and he's also a member of the Institute of Human Rights of the same institution. I'm not going to name the organisation. Ignacio's research interests have focused mainly on children's rights and on the rights of persons with disabilities and the rights of children with disabilities. And in particular, he has a focus on the right to inclusive education for children with disabilities, which is a new right under the International Convention, or under the new UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which for the first time enshrined a right to inclusive education. And he looks at that in the context of looking at human rights and the rule of law. So we're very pleased to have Ignacio with us. Next, we have two people from Uruguay, and Uruguay are playing today in the World Cup. I just mentioned that. I don't know how they've done, and I don't know whether the match has happened. I'm just aware that they are playing today. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Natalia Farias. And Natalia has a degree in psychology, and she's also a certified teacher in danceability. She's a psychologist and she's worked in a variety of different environments to help with the inclusion of people with disabilities. She has participated in training in MIUSA, which is Mobility International USA, together with a group of women with disabilities from around the world. In 2014, she also participated in the Global Partnership for Children with Disabilities within New York. In Uruguay, she participates in the coordination of inclusion projects related to children and young people, working on different projects, and she's also part of a Meta youth group in the Inter-American Institute of Disability Inclusive Development, of which she's one of the co-founders. Currently, she's also working as the advisory division for gender equality on Montevideo City Council, where she collaborates to articulate in the area of gender and disability. And finally, and we're very lucky to have all these people here today, we have Sergio. And Sergio is a psychologist and a specialist in inclusive development. He currently serves as an advisor to UNICEF and the United Nations Population Fund in the development of a regional agenda for the inclusion of children, adolescents, and youth with disabilities. He has been a consultant for different international agencies and governments of the Latin American region, and he teaches in the Latin American Faculty of Social Sciences in Argentina, and he's a scholar at Erasmus at the University of Granada in Spain. He coordinates the project in the Inter-American Institute on Disability and Inclusive Development and is a co-founder member of META, which is a juvenile project in the Mandela Network of Inclusive Education in Uruguay. So, as you can see, we have a very, very heavy-hitting group here with huge accolades, so it will be great for us to hear from them this afternoon. And how it's going to work is that Professor Gerard Quinn is going to introduce the topic, and then Ignacio is going to speak for a few minutes, about 10-12 minutes, and then Natalia and Sergio are going to speak for 10 minutes each, and Gerard is then going to facilitate a conversation between the participants, and then we'll throw it open to the floor for questions and answers. Okay? So I look forward to this session very much.
Hello, this works. Excellent. Can you hear me? Okay. Very, very welcome. we are very proud that we managed to get into the UN Convention several articles on intersectionality, one of which deals with children with disabilities. It's kind of an unprecedented step that such a treaty would be so explicit about what we call intersectionality. So we're really, really lucky that this afternoon we have somebody to address the ideas, the theory, the conceptualization, how you frame the rights of the child within the context of the rights of people with disabilities, and vice versa, Ignacio, as well as people from the world of practice. How do youth and children with disabilities organize? What are the barriers? What are the major challenges they face? How do they draw from the convention in their advocacy? Because high principle is useless without actual practice, but at the same time, the practice can be fertilized and forwarded by some theoretical conceptions. So hopefully we'll get a nice conversation going between practice and theory. And I want to hand it over to Ignacio, who is one of the first to work in the world, really, on the concept of children with disabilities and how that interacts with the UNCRC. Very, very stimulating publication record, and great speaker, and over to you, Ignacio.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for coming here, and thank you for the organization to invite me to this summer school. For me, it's a real pleasure to be here. I have been here 3 years ago, something like that, and I can find old friends, so thank you very much. They said to me that I had to be very careful with the time, so I am trying to do, because I had a very large presentation, so I am not going to be able to talk for all the slides in the presentation. So fortunately, I have some slides in the presentation that are the key points that I want to talk. So I am going to focus in these slides, and after that, if you want to talk some questions or in the conversation that we are going to have, we can extend the information that I am going to share with you this afternoon. The main objective that I try to achieve is to identify the main problem that in our society have the children with disabilities. And after that, I am going to try to give a solution for this problem in the point of view of the human rights model. So what is this problem? Well, I have to think that we have to start with what we understand for human rights model, what we have to understand for human rights, because if not, we are not going to understand anything that I want to say. And the main idea is to keep in mind, from my point of view, that human rights are for all people, so it includes persons with disability, children with disability, and so on, of course, all people. The aim of the human rights are that all people can achieve their own personality, acting for fulfill their own life plans. So that means that everyone can exercise their rights with their will, their preference to achieve their own personalities. The main goal then for a democratic society is to achieve the effectiveness of the human rights for all. No? So this is the idea. We have to achieve this main goal for all the people, but we realize that in our society we don't have this for so many people, and one of these groups is the children with disabilities. This is why we have different models of rights for children, different models of rights for persons with disability that are not the same than human rights model. For the children, we have a traditional protectionist model that shares something with medical model for persons with disability. We have a renewed protectionist model that started with the Convention of the Rights of the Child in 1989, and it has something in common with the social model for persons with disability, and another thing different is the human rights model. Let me give you only the main ideas, as I said before, but what it means, the traditional protectionist model for children and the medical model for persons with disability. Well, this means that we construct a society that clearly underestimates the capabilities of children, the person with disability, and so on, the children with disability. Why? Because the main idea is we have to protect this person. We have to achieve the best interest of this person, but we don't have to give them the right to exercise these rights for their own. We have only to protect the best for this person. Of course, you know that all of this, what means at the end, is the discrimination and social exclusion of these people. And we have to go further away. What we construct is the renewed protectionist model for children and the social model for persons with disability. And I want to focus in these two main principles in the Convention of the Rights of the Child. One is in the Article 3 that says that we have to achieve the best interest for children. And Article 12 is what now, as I am going to say later, understand that we have to give the participation for the children in all the matters that affect them. But you can read that in Article 12 of Convention of the Rights of the Child, it doesn't say this. It says only, the state part shall assure to the child who is capable of forming his or her own views the right to express those views freely. It's not participation. It's only to express the views, and we are going to take in account only in the grade of maturity and the age of the child. Well, this is the main ideas for the model of children's rights that we have today. For the social model, instead, we have another thing different, and this is Article 12 on the Convention of the Rights of the Person with Disability, no rights of the child, rights of person with disability. As you know, in Article 12 say that equal recognition before the law, we have to assure the enjoy legal capacity on equal basis with others in all aspects of life for persons with disability, for all persons with disability. So we can understand that as well for children with disability. And this is in Article 12. This is the legal capacity for all persons. This is not the same that we have for children with disability. For children with disability, we only have that we have to protect the best interests of these people. In the articles of the Convention of the Rights of the Child, what we find is only to protect the children with disability because they have an special needs and they need a special protection for them. This is Article 23 of the Convention of the Rights of the Child. The state parties recognize the right of the disabled child to special care, recognizing the special needs of disabled child. So this is a different point of view. We have children that are special, and this is not the human rights model, but this is what we have for children's rights model. Even the Article 7 of the rights of persons with disability, they don't go far away. They say the same that in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, because at the end we have in the first point of the Article 7 is that the state parties shall take all necessary measures to ensure the full enjoyment of children with disability of all human rights and fundamental freedoms on an equal basis with other children. So the same that for the other children. And this is not what I said before, the human rights model. And the point 2 and 3 only said these two main principles of the children's rights model, the best interest of the child and the right to express their views freely on all matters affecting them. So this is the problem that we have. No? We construct the society where persons with disability are entitled to necessary support to exercise their human rights on equal basis with others in all aspects of life. Perfect, okay? But children with disability are entitled to all necessary measures to ensure the full enjoyment of human rights on equal basis with other children. And this is the problem, because the model of the rights of children, with or without disabilities, is grounded in achieve the best interest, expressing their views freely on all matters affecting them. So we have that the rights of persons with disability are inside the model of human rights, but the rights of children are not. And this is what we have to solve. And what is the solution I propose in, how much time I have? 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. Well, the solution is in the human rights model. The solution is that, as I said before, the aim of the human rights is respect to the will and preference of all persons, so that people can develop their own personalities acting to fulfill their own life plans. And this is for all the people. Then is for children with disabilities as well, and children without disabilities as well. In other words, in the light of the human rights, the model is that the best interest of any person is the respect for their rights, will, and preference, and not another kind of interest. So we have to think that we have to go further away, and the Committee of the Rights of the Child interpreted now the Article 3 and Article 12 in another way that is in the beginning. Now the interpretation of these two articles, two principles, is going more close from the human rights model. In this general comment of the Committee of the Rights of the Child, number 12, they say that the right to the child to be heard is to participate in all the decision. And we have to take into account the point of view of the children. So it's not only to hear, it's to give an effective participation. And in the general comment number 14, the Committee of the Rights of the Child say in paragraph 4, this is the most important for me, say that the concept of the child's best interest is aimed at ensuring both the full and effective enjoyment of all rights recognized in the Convention and the holistic development of the child. So this is the human rights model. The best interest is achieve the free development of their own personality in the enjoyment of the rights. This is a good decision, no? And this is the linkage between both of them. The linkage is, if we have to achieve the best interest of the child, there is not other way that to give them the participation, to give them the right to exercise their own rights. Okay? So this is the main idea. I have 2 minutes, I think. No, but I can end, I think. So what is the meaning then from the best interest of the child? The free development of their own personality. No other way. If there is another meaning for the best interest of the child, we are outside of the human rights model. And what we have to understand for the participation of the child, the free exercise of the rights. Then this is the human rights model for children and for children with disability, with disabilities as well. So according with that model, the most important consideration is the children's legal capacity to exercise their rights on an equal basis with everyone else. That means apply Article 12 of the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability to the children and to the children with disability as well. The last slide is try to keep in mind these 3 main ideas. No? The first one is, in our society today, what we have is the survival of the renewed protectionist model that doesn't allow the full incorporation of rights of children in the human rights model. This is what we have today. But there is a new interpretation of these basic principles, the rights to be heard and the best interest of the child. And if we interpreted these 2 principles under the light of the Article 12 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, then we can transit to the incorporation of children's rights in the human rights model. If we do that, the incorporation of the rights of the children in the human rights model implies the recognition of all children as holder of all the human rights, and with the possibility of exercise them in accordance to their will and preference. Then we will have the human rights model for the children with disability as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ignacio. That was really clear. And the takeaways from Ignacio's presentation have to do with framings, two different ways of framing the rights of disabled children. The more traditional way of framing it through the CRC, where the emphasis is on protection, but also on needs conceptualized as special needs, versus the CRPD, which is a much broader conceptualization of the rights of children with disabilities. Of course, it's about protection, but it's also about nurturing capacities, full personality, as well as liberating and empowering children with disabilities to be agents of their own destiny, moral agents in their own right. And what you left us with was the intriguing reality that the CRC committee is reconceptualizing traditional ideas of best interests to mean effectively what the CRPD is saying, in other words, persons being fully involved in decisions affecting themselves. And of course, an interesting question comes out of that. Is there a limit to the extent to which the CRC committee can align its jurisprudence with the CRPD? Have we reached that limit? Is there more to go? So that was wonderful. Good start. So Sergio, Natalia, I'm not sure which one of you would like to begin. Sergio, away you go. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks to the summer school for having us this afternoon. We're very pleased to be here. We're going to share with you a little bit of the work that we've been doing since 2013 in South America to create a network of adolescents and young persons with and without disability that collaborate and develop projects and interventions to promote more inclusive societies and to basically prepare a new generation of young activists to carry on the work that was done in the 20th century by the leaders of the disability movement. We've been working across the region, are currently active in 5 Latin American countries: Argentina, Uruguay, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico, and hoping to be able to start working soon with partners, with DPOs in Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. Thank you. A little bit of data about young persons with disability. How do I move it? Okay. There are 10 million young persons with disabilities in the Latin American region, taking between 13 and 25 years of age. The majority of these people are excluded or segregated from the education system. They are largely overrepresented amongst those that either work or study. They are neglected the most basic sexual and reproductive health rights and invisible for the programs that address gender violence, STDs, gender education, sexual education. But also, besides these structural determinants of their situation, youth with disabilities are the last in line in both the disability organizations, where there are adults that run the agenda and decide the agenda of most disabled people organizations, and they are also invisible and not included in youth initiatives. They are disempowered, often overprotected by their families, unaware of their rights. They tend to be excluded from the most basic opportunities to build up their confidence, their autonomy, which is essential for them to advance their expectations, their project life. We started from the realization that growing up with a disability in the 21st century is a different experience than it was to grow up with a disability in the 20th century. And I like to say that the 21st century for people with disability didn't start in 2000. It started in 2006 after the convention. It's the convention that really is the turning point to the 21st century for persons with disabilities. And growing up, if you are 10 years old, if you are 15 years old, if you have 20 years of age and have a disability now, it's a completely different experience. It involves different rights, different opportunities, but also involves different challenges, tensions. There are challenges and tensions that take place at an individual level because you have to be prepared for the new situations, the new opportunities. There are tensions and challenges that at the level of the family because it determines the degree of autonomy, the support that adolescents or young people have in terms of independent living. There are, of course, challenges at the level of institutions because institutions have to accommodate them now. It happens with the schools, it happens with health services. And there are also challenges at the level of the society because of the stigma and because of the need to transform what is expected from someone with a disability in the 21st century. So this is why we choose and we identify working with young people and provide them support, knowledge, information, and tools to deal with the new context, with the new opportunities as something that we wanted to do and we wanted to take as one of our missions. Meta was actually born at the intersection of many differences. The beginning of Meta was an invitation that we received from a large youth network that was getting together activists, young activists from the area of women's rights, the area of environment, different topics, and they asked us to select 4 young persons with disabilities to join the network for training in Mexico. And the impact that these 4 young persons had in the network, in this network that was completely kind of distasteful about how to include them, how to make a space for them to participate in the activities, made us think that it was important to create this network as a space for people with and without disability and try to generate something in common for them. So there were, from the beginning, intersections. The 4 people that we selected to attend this training were people from 4 different countries. They have 4 different disabilities. They have a lot of difference amongst them. So they have to build a common ground, an understanding of how each of them functions, and even find a way to communicate and to work together as a group. So from the beginning, the challenge was to address the intersections, to address the challenges, and also address some of the tensions that emerge from these challenges. I think we are learning on the way, but there are many tensions that we kind of have to live with. There are tensions in terms of generations. Very recently, one of the Meta members, we managed to get him included as part of the Uruguayan delegation that attended the review of Uruguay in Geneva by the committee. So he made a speech. It was very interesting to hear the speech via live Facebook. And in the speech, he said something like, we young people don't want, have to spend all our lives for the rights as, the previous generation of activists had to wait all their lives for the convention. So I thought it was really good that he said that we are not the future, we are the present, that kind of argument of rationale. And then when I shared the video with a colleague of mine, a dear friend who is a senior activist in the area of disability, she said to me, well, ask Germán, this deaf member of Meta, ask him how that he thinks that he got to Geneva. We work all our lives to get him to Geneva in order to be part of the process of reviewing the implementation of the convention. So there are tensions between the different generations. We're starting a new project that is called Intergenerational Dialogues that put together people of different generations to discuss how was it to be a person with a disability in the 20th century. What were the fights? What were the tools for the fights? And what are the current fights, the current challenges and tools? There are tensions also between families, between the young people and the families, because of the degree of autonomy that they are allowed to have, and the preparation that families require in order to allow more independence, more autonomy. There are, of course, tensions among the different disability groups. We are very proud of the way that we are managing to get people from different, ways of functioning to work together and to understand the same thing and to find common ways to intervene and to respond to the challenges. At the same time, we still have to deal at the end of the day with some needs, some specific needs for people to feel included or to feel their identities to be acknowledged. So the double track, concept is still needed. Am I going? Okay. There are many tensions. There are also tensions in terms of gender. I was wondering while in the previous roundtable about gender education for male. I'm in contact with a lot of sexism amongst the men, young activists. And that's, to do with the lack of exposure to gender education and to sex education. So there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of addressing those tensions. So the fact that we are working throughout the sections doesn't mean that they are not all the time challenges and tensions that require specific responses and specific interventions. So that's all for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Sergio. As you were talking about statistics, 10 million children with disabilities in Latin America, I was reminded of the statistic from Lumos in London to the effect that there are 8 million children around the world in institutions, 3.5 million of whom have disabilities, which is absolutely scandalous. I think one thing that resonates very clearly with Ignacio, and this will come out in the conversation, is the traditional focus on protection, which really is a way of smothering the moral agency of the child, versus the image, the 21st century image of the Convention of empowerment and liberation and nurturing their capacities. And I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to come through. Also, the new generation of activists, what they look like, their issues, their concerns, because we have a habit of thinking there are concerns, they're completely different. And within that, some of the tensions, particularly on gender issues, very, very fascinating. But I think the big takeaway is this pivot from protection toward a more holistic philosophy of empowerment and nurturing of children with disabilities. So, last but certainly not least, Natalia, you have the floor.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all.
Estoy muy contenta de estar acá.
I'm very happy to be here.
y me tocó hablar un poco de la experiencia
I'm going to talk from my experience
de este camino de meta
in this work we do with Meta
y del liderazgo juvenil.
and of youth leadership.
Cuando preparaba la presentación,
While I was preparing this presentation,
me remonté a cuando conocí a Sergio,
I thought back to the moment when I met Sergio,
que todavía no existía Meta, pero sí IDI.
Meta as a group didn't exist, but the ED did, the institution.
Estábamos en una conferencia
We were in a conference together,
y yo intervine
and I said something, I intervened,
y a la salida él me vino a hablar
and when we went out from the conference, he came to me
y me invitó a acercarme a esta organización
and invited me to work with him in his organization.
y yo de forma muy atrevida le dije,
And I told him, like,
no me interesa.
I'm not interested.
No me interesa porque no me interesa trabajar únicamente
I'm not interested because I'm not interested in working only
en ámbitos relacionados con la discapacidad.
only in where they work only with disability.
Y él me dijo, perfecto.
And he told me, like, perfect, that's what I'm looking for.
Creo que esto resume una forma de ver la interseccionalidad.
I think that is an example of a way to see intersectionality.
Porque no solo implica empoderarnos como jóvenes con discapacidad en organizaciones de personas con discapacidad,
It's not only about empowering ourselves as youth with disabilities in organizations for people with disabilities,
sino que implica ocupar otros espacios comunes.
it implies being in other common spaces.
Como dijo Sergio,
As Sergio said,
Meta en concreto se remite a México,
Meta started in Mexico,
donde con 3 compañeros más que a su vez no nos conocíamos,
where I was there with 3 more friends. We didn't know each other at the time.
impactamos en un ámbito de jóvenes donde nunca habían participado jóvenes con discapacidad.
And we made an impact in a space, in a place where there were young people, but there have never been young people with disabilities.
El impacto fue tan fuerte que otros jóvenes se empezaron a acercar y
The impact was so strong that other young people came to us,
esta idea de Meta surgió naturalmente.
and the idea of the Meta Youth Network came up naturally.
Porque otra cosa novedosa de jóvenes
Because other thing that's new with this youth network
que somos jóvenes con y sin discapacidad.
is that we are young people with and without disabilities working together.
Nos enteramos fundamentalmente en tres artículos de la Convención.
We focus our work principally in 3 articles of the CRPD:
Educación, inclusiva, salud y recreación y cultura.
inclusive education, health, and recreation and culture.
Entonces, se le dijo,
This was already said by Sergio.
uno de los proyectos que desarrollamos en Uruguay
One of the projects we developed in Uruguay
es la participación de una red de jóvenes de escuelas en que pasan la participación de una red de escuelas inclusivas
is the creation of a network of inclusive schools
donde aportamos a escuelas comunes en todo lo que tiene que ver lo social para la inclusión.
where we support mainstream schools in the social aspects for inclusion.
De esta manera, yo fui parte de la coordinación del trabajo con niños.
I worked there as a coordinator of the work with children,
En donde algunos niños no entendían en qué idioma hablaba.
and some children didn't understand what language I was speaking.
Algunos niños decían que venía de otro planeta.
Some of them said I came from another planet.
Entonces, el poner el cuerpo
So to be there, present,
genera impacto
generates impact,
y ese impacto permite poder conversar del tema
and that impact it was what allows to talk about the issues,
y que los mismos niños puedan debatir sobre diversidad,
and that the children themselves can debate about diversity,
derechos, convivencia.
to be together.
Hay otro proyecto que bueno, que estamos desarrollando que tiene que ver con esos artículos, pero sí para terminar que estamos
There are other projects we are developing that have to do with the articles I mentioned earlier.
que estamos empezando a trabajar en género y capacidad
We are starting to work on gender and disability,
y desde la perspectiva siempre de que los jóvenes tenemos que estar
from the perspective that young people have to be agents,
para generar los cambios.
have to be there to generate change.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks a lot.
So, thanks very much, Natalia. This very much was intersectionality in action. Very, very interesting that you were intent on working across grounds And that's actually the way life is. We're not just interested in disability in our own situation, but maybe in the environment, maybe in corporate social responsibility. So you're a citizen and not just a person with a disability. And that instinct, as you say, to occupy common spaces is very, very interesting, and the META program really deserves to be studied quite closely. I think one thing that connects the three presentations is the need to decisively pivot away from traditional conceptions of protection toward conceptualizing the youth or the child with disability as an agent, as you put it yourself, Natalia, as an autonomous citizen, as somebody interested in connecting in issues that involve yourself but that are bigger than yourself, really, basically, citizen. So before we open it up to the floor, let me put one or two questions to the panel members to ignite the conversation. And it's this, really. Can you develop this idea about the contrast between traditional models of protection and, as you put it, Sergio, 21st century models of basically liberation and empowerment? We'll start first with you, Ignacio, and then move on.
Thank you, Gerard. Yes, thank you. Yes, I think the idea of the protection and the new idea at the end, it grounds in what we think about the people and what we think about the rights. I mean, what idea we have about people and rights, because our society is constructed sometimes in some myths about people. I mean, for example, there is an important sentence of the Constitutional Court in Spain about inclusive education, and what the court said, it was terrible, because the court decided that children with disability has to go to a special school and not to an ordinary school, a common school, because the court said, well, he has to go with his equals and other children with disability. I mean, the court, when the court is seeing this child, they are not seeing a child. They are seeing a child with disabilities, and their equals are child with disabilities. And this is the problem. I mean, in the protectionism, in the traditional model, what the people see in a child with disabilities is the disability. It's not that it is a citizen, it is a moral agent, that it is a person. No, it's only that these are children with disability. And what we have to keep in mind is that a children with disability, first of all, is a person. First of all, a human being with human rights. And after that, he's under 18 years old, so he's a child. And after that, he's a child with disability, because there are certain barriers in the society that don't allow him to exercise their rights. But first of all, he's a person. So this is the idea, and the idea is, what are the rights for? The right in the traditional model, the rights are for protect the child. And now we have to think that the rights are to achieve the people exercising these rights to develop their own personality. So they have to exercise their rights with their will, preference, and not has to be exercised for another people thinking in their best interest of the child. So we have to change the point of view of what is a person, and to change the point of view, what are the rights for?
Yeah, I don't know, your question makes me think that there is a slim line between protection and overprotection in the experience of young persons with disability. At least this is what I'm in contact with, not only because of my work with young people, but my work as a clinical psychologist as well. So you need also to work at an individual level in terms of empowerment and in terms of the person developing, the attitudes, the skills to deal with its rise, with its opportunities, to be up to So I think this would be, in my experience, the main difference between existing disability laws before the convention and the new legal and social environment, that it requires also a lot of work at an individual, family, and institutional level for people to develop these personal, institutional, social tools that are required for these rights to be exercised. I remember that something that was said by a Brazilian sociologist, that citizenship depends on the laws and the subjects. So to have a citizen, you need the law, but you also need some personal attitudes, personal skills, personal tools. So the work we do focus on this other side of the equation, the individual level, the social level, and trying to support young people so they really seize the new opportunities that we are hoping to advance for them.
Bueno, tu pregunta me viene a la cabeza el tema de los apoyos.
Your question makes me think about supports.
Creo que la convención es una de las principales aportes.
I think the CRPD is one of the main, the important things. Contributions, I'm sorry.
Son los aportes y ajustes razonables.
Support mechanisms and reasonable accommodation.
Y me parece que eso da la oportunidad de ver las necesidades diferentes
And that's the opportunity to see the different needs
que sí existen,
that do exist.
pero con esa noción de aportes
But thinking about the supports and the accommodations,
es lo que promueve verdaderamente la inclusión.
that is what really promotes the inclusion.
Y es totalmente necesario
It's totally necessary
trabajar con las familias,
to work with families,
pero no solo desde los profesionales a las familias,
but not just professionals to families,
sino un espacio para pensar
but to have a space to think together,
juntos el cómo.
the ways, the different ways.
En ese sentido,
In this respect,
en el proyecto Mandela
in the Mandela Network,
se trabaja con familias y niños
we work with families and with children
para pensar en conjunto las estrategias,
to think together about strategies,
tanto de familias de niños con discapacidad,
we work together with families of children with disabilities
como familias de niños sin discapacidad.
and families of children without disabilities.
Excellent. So we have a competition of framings. We have a very traditional worldview that overemphasizes protection, which probably doesn't actually protect, to be honest. And then we have a new worldview in the CRPD that tries to protect but also nurtures and empowers. And Natalia, you were very right to focus on supports to enable that to happen. And of course, this new model is very disruptive of traditional power relationships, whether within the family or as between the child and service providers, or even between the child and government agencies. I want to put one more question, and I will single out Ignacio on this because hopefully it will prompt some further observations and questions. Ignacio, you were saying that the CRC committee, to a certain extent, understands this shift from one framework to the other and has been reinterpreting the CRC to move the focus away from protection and toward empowerment and nurturing. Could you explain a bit more how it's doing that? And could you perhaps speculate on whether there's a limit to which the CRC committee can do that, given the actual language of the CRC convention?
Thank you. Well, in fact, inside the Committee of the Rights of Children, there are persons that know very well the CRPD and understand very well the goals of the CRPD. There are few of them, but I am thinking in one particular that is Jorge Cardona, that is a Spanish person, and I was talking with him, and yes, of course, he understands that we have to interpret the CRC in a different way that it has been interpreted in the past. The main idea for the children with disability is that of course, the CRPD gives to the children with disability new tools to achieve the development of their personality or to have participation in the exercise of their rights more than the CRC. But as I said before, this is important, but this is not the most important. The most important idea is that the CRC, the committee of the CRC, is trying to interpret the two main principles of the convention: the best interest of the child and the right to the child to be heard. And they are thinking that the children need more participation, effective participation in the exercise of their rights. And then, of course, I think they are not saying now what I said before, that the best interest of each person is the free development of their own personality, and we don't have to give another interpretation for the best interest of the child of Article 3. They are not saying like that. But it's true that in the paragraph 4 of this general comment, the CRC committee said the best interest of the child is as well the whole development of their own capacities. And this has to be with the free development of their own personality, and this only can be achieved with the participation of the children in the exercise of the right. But they said the real participation is not only hear the child. We have to take into account all the points of view, all the preference of the child in the exercise of the rights. And we have to give them this participation in all the process of the taking decisions. And if we are going to take another decision that the child say that they want to take, we have to explain them why we are not going to act like they ask us to act. So at the end, yes, the idea is they are moving on. They are starting to think that we have to give to the children with disabilities more participation, and this is going to be good for all the children with disabilities and without disabilities. In this particular issue, that in another issues, we have to give thank you for the movement of the person with disability rights, because at the end, this is human rights, and the human rights is for all people. And when persons with disabilities say to us, to the whole society, we have to interpret this particular right in this way, this is going to be good for all the people. I mean, when they say in Article 12, we have to give the legal capacity in equal basis for all the persons with disability, at the end, this is good for all people, for persons with disability and persons without disability. Natalia told before about inclusive education. It's the same. And then now we are interpreting the right to education in the way that the right to inclusive education said to us we have to interpret it. So this changed the whole system. And this is something that the Committee of the Rights of the Child are saying as well.
So this is a fascinating example of a 21st century treaty informing how more traditional treaties are understood and interpreted. So Siobhan, I think you were going to take some questions and bundle them. Okay.
So, anybody have any questions for the, okay. So if I could have here, here. Let's start here with this lady in the front.
Thank you. Yeah.
If you just give us your name and where you're from before you ask your question, that'd be great.
I'm Esma Gumberidze from Georgia, from the country. I have a kind of practical question.